Thank you, Marilyn. By the way, I know that there are a few kids in the service here today, and when you leave, I want you to be sure and stop and see me. I have something for you. I went to seminary from 1976 to 1979 at Princeton Theological Seminary in New Jersey. I followed that up with a few other theological degrees, but I wanted to tell you a story about my time when I was at Princeton Seminary. Everybody was required to have what was called a field placement. It could be a hospital, it could be a church, it could be a specialized setting. Basically, it was a hands-on opportunity to put into practice what you were learning in the classroom. My field placement was in Trenton, New Jersey, of all places. It was in a church. I believe the name was Pilgrim Presbyterian Church. I was asked to help out with the youth and assist in the worship service, which meant something very impressive, like I took up the offering. I took up the offering, and then once a semester I was called upon to deliver a message, to preach a sermon. Something like how we shouldn't have to take up an offering. I guess it wasn't the Princeton way, because I only served 1 year at that church before having to move on. But let me be clear with you, it's not like it was full of opportunity and education for me. It was more like indentured servanthood. And that wasn't what I was looking for. My second year, seminary, the basic Master of Divinity degree, it takes you 3 years, sometimes 4, but usually 3 years. In my second year, I had a fantastic part-time job up in what we called the speech studios. Those were in Stewart Hall, this large, impressive Romanesque style building with high, imposing arches and very thick stone walls and a massive staircase leading up to the front doors that were huge. On the third floor of Stewart, we had the speech studios, and they were staffed by actors and actresses from New York City and Broadway. I learned a little bit more about communication there than I ever did in Trenton. We also had an impressive studio with all of the modern technology available at the time. That was in 79, so basically it was a light bulb and a calculator. We had some TV cameras, we had some lighting, we had music, we had a soundboard, we had all the equipment that you could purchase. Well, I had a job up there in the speech studios. My job was to fulfill orders that came in requesting cassette tapes of all the famous theologians and preachers that would come to campus. And being Princeton Seminary, there was all the money in the world to bring in whoever they wanted, and they wanted. And we recorded everything from a sermon to a week-long sermon series. We even had a tremendous array of speeches and sermons from very famous people that didn't even come to campus. People like Martin Luther King, Jr. Well, I fulfilled my job taking speeches and sermons off the reel to reel and putting them on cassettes, sticking them in an envelope and sending them off to people. That was the easy part. And to be honest with you, it didn't take me a long time to do my job. And I had other time available. So I would sit there and I would put a cassette on Martin Luther King. And I would listen to it over and over and over again. I listened to it and I memorized the lines of those speeches and his sermons. And I practiced the cadence to get that down to where I began to think of myself as a white Martin Luther King Jr. A little bit. I learned about his speeches, his sermons, his theology, his practice. I pored over each and every one of them. When my shift was over, I would close up that little office and I would grab my books and head down the 2 flights of stairs, past the huge, enormous doors, and walk out to the top of the steps leading up to Stewart Hall. And I would pause. I would pause there and looked out over the campus commons. And I imagined that there were 250,000 people. And that these steps were the same steps that led me up the stairs to the Lincoln Hall, to the Lincoln Memorial on the Washington Mall. And I would imagine myself saying something like, I have a dream.
I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
My dream, of course, was what Dr. Martin Luther King would later address in a sermon entitled The Drum Major Instinct. He took as his scripture reading this story from Mark chapter 10. Brothers James and John had come to Jesus with this request that when he came into his glory, that each would be permitted to sit on his left or his right. They wanted to share in his power, you see, but they didn't yet understand what power in Jesus' kingdom would mean for those choosing to follow him as a disciple. Instead of holding power and sway over others for selfish gain, the power in Jesus' kingdom is the power to serve one another. Surprisingly, what we see in Jesus' response is not chastisement. Jesus wasn't angry at them. He didn't respond in any condescending way. He didn't shame them for wanting this. What he gave was a calm and measured response. Well, you don't understand what you're asking for. Can you drink of the cup that I drink? Can you be baptized in the same manner that I will be? We can, they said. Okay. You can almost see the sad face come on Jesus. Okay, then you will. But to sit on my left and on my right is not mine to give. Jesus was trying to reframe the question. He was trying to teach them, you see, that there was nothing wrong with power. There was nothing wrong with having money. And there's nothing inherently misguided about wanting to be first in the kingdom, to be the drum major out front leading the parade. Nothing wrong with that at all. It's all about what you do with that power. As I stood on the top of those steps of Stewart Hall, looking out over the campus commons, behind me, this huge Romanesque building with its imposing arches. And I imagined that there were 250,000 people as far as I could see. All of them having come to listen to my dream. I'll be honest with you. I liked how it felt. I liked the feeling. I was the new Moses, I imagined, who had come to lead the parade to the promised land. Wouldn't they love me now? But slowly I began to realize that this was all about me, and I didn't know it. Over time, the dissonance grew more pervasive within me, and I stopped pausing at the top of the steps, and I stopped listening to I Have a Dream speech. I started listening more to the drum major instinct. And I began to memorize it, cadence and all. Because Martin Luther King and my King Jesus were telling me the same thing, that my priorities were not in the right place, and I needed to reorder my priorities and take a hard look at my motivations. It was okay that I wanted to rise to the top. It was laudable. That I wanted to be first. But for what purpose? Asked Dr. King. To what end? Jesus said to James and John. Dr. King challenged us to be drum majors. He didn't say we shouldn't be. He challenged us to be drum majors for justice, leading the parade of love, peace, and righteousness. And I'm going to tell you right now that I have come to believe with all my heart, through my years and through my faith, this is the only parade I ever want to march in again. I don't want to be out front just for selfish gain. I want to use what I have and who I am to serve others. My instincts for success are best used to right a wrong world. True greatness is when we use our resources and our talents to serve others. Isn't that what Dr. King did? For civil rights, for nonviolent resistance, equal opportunities for all. And doesn't this still stand as a beckoning call to all of us? It's what Jesus has been trying to teach us since the days of James and John. That we find our lives by serving one another. To use what we have and who we are to serve all the children of this world. And if honoring the instincts that God has built within us, within you and me, if those instincts help us to have what is necessary to be good servants, then please put me in that parade somewhere. I was born to serve others.
And so Jesus gave us a new norm of greatness. If you want to be important, wonderful. If you want to be recognized, wonderful. If you want to be great, wonderful. But recognize that he who is greatest among you shall be your servant. That's a new definition of greatness. And this morning, the thing that I like about it, by giving that definition of greatness, it means that everybody can be great. Because everybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and your verb agree to serve. You don't have to know about Plato and Aristotle to serve. You don't have to know Einstein's theory of relativity to serve. You don't have to know the second theory of thermodynamics in physics to serve. You only need a heart full of grace.
That's all that we need. You want to be out front? You want to be the drum major? Great. Use what you have and who you are. Lead the parade for justice, for love, for peace and understanding. And serve one another. May God bless you. And may God bless our dear United Church of Marco Island.